I need power. Where's Bill?
Modern living demands access to power, staying connected, and being ready for any occasion. Solar generators are the answer for all portable energy solutions.
Wow, thanks, Bill.
Early morning coffee or a quick phone recharge. Solar generators charge it so you can use it over and over again.
Battery Bill. Portable power.
When you need it.
How's it going, everybody? It is episode 106, episode 106 here on Hawaii Football Now. Jordan Helly, Hunter Hughes back with you. Our guy Jonathan producing another episode here. We're getting them up early today. We record this Wednesday, September 6th. It's just after 6:30 a.m. The sun is up. Practice is about to start for the University of Hawaii as they prepare for Albany coming up this weekend as the Great Danes make the great trip all the way from New York State out here to the islands to take on the Bows this Saturday at Ching. Big shout out to Spectrum Mobile, HawaiiUSA, Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill back on the board as we get going here, getting ready for week 3, really, third opponent of the season. Already 2 games in. Kind of crazy. So what happens when you play 2 games in 7 days. We were set to release this tomorrow, Thursday, September 7th, as usual, to get you primed and ready for the weekend's action. All right, quick opening drive as Hawaii loses to Stanford over the weekend, 37-24. Before we get into it, this will be our first episode of September. Time is flying, as we mentioned. The atmosphere. I wanted to talk about that, Hunter, kind of get that front and center. Obviously, we'll get into the game. It was, I think, fairly fair to say, a disappointing one, right? A game they ended up losing by multiple scores against I think, a much improved Stanford team over the last couple of years. But expanded capacity, student section was pretty packed. It wasn't quite full capacity when it came to butts in the seats, but it looked really good on TV. I wasn't there at the coaching game that night. Hunter, of course, was always patrolling the sidelines for us on ESPN Honolulu. What'd you make of it, Hunter? What'd you make of the atmosphere, everything that kind of came with it in the game day experience?
Jordan, it was awesome. Like everything you would want out of a home opener. Glanced over to the student section on multiple occasions and talked to whoever was near me saying, we haven't had that since the MAC era. I mean, literally go all the way back to like 2010, and you'd be hard pressed to find a student section that committed to a University of Hawaii football game. It was awesome. From that to the pregame pule for Lahaina and for Maui and the victims, that was incredibly well done. It was a very emotional and heavy moment, as you might imagine. Everyone, like they had so many people represented during that kind of vigil. The governor was out there, Lassner was out there, Craig Angeles was out there, and then almost like a committee of kahus who represented different churches from around the islands. Right after they finished the pule, it started dumping rain, and it felt like those two were connected. Just the environment, the sun kind of setting over Stan Sheriff, an earlier game because it was a national televised game. I mean, it had the makings of an all-time type of atmosphere for University of Hawaii. It is a bummer that we couldn't get it done because it was all out there for us.
Yeah, it looked great on TV. Does it feel, having been down there a little bit, and obviously it looks bigger than the 9,000 seat, right? It's enclosed. Does it feel significantly bigger in terms of, people kind of being in the stadium, like atmosphere, more fans. Obviously 12, whatever the number was, is going to be more than they could have ever fit in there prior. And you, like most things, you're going to get a lot of guys out of their seats mingling and going to get food and drink and things like that. But did it feel significantly bigger in terms of a stadium like experience?
Yeah, it certainly felt louder when a play would happen and the student section is right there. I mean, felt like they were right on top of the field, which you'll see this next week, Jordan. They put the student section like right behind the end zone, closest to the Les Murakami, and right next to them on kind of the edge section of that same end zone area is where they put the band. And so just having the band elevated again above the field, like for third down, like I don't know who their new, like if there's a new band director or something, but they would like blare horns on third down and hold the note for, I'm not kidding, it felt like 30 seconds. And it like made me quake because it was so loud. So that was definitely cool. The opposite end zone section, so I guess that would be the west end zone, really elevated, really I guess you could say extended, all the way above the coach's offices down there on TC Ching. So that to me feels the most the most kind of extended and abbreviated. And then they kind of enclosed that part of the stadium with stands and created two different tunnels for the two respective teams to run out of. So yeah, really, really cool. And it certainly felt like we had 15, 20,000, you know what I mean? It's tough to split hairs in experience, but it felt like a full, just shy packed house at the Ching.
Nothing quite like running out of a tunnel. I don't know if it can really be explained. It's just, there's just something about it. Like it beats not running out of a tunnel or running out of thin, open air. It's just something about the tunnel. Yeah, can't wait to get there this weekend. Excited to see you boys as well down at the field. We'll all be there Saturday for the Albany contest, 6:00 regular time. Yeah, I think maybe just cancel school on Fridays. Get I know all the games of the rest of the way are on Saturdays, but just get the students excited. It looked really cool, no doubt about that. All right, that was definitely a huge positive. I think the game day atmosphere. We'll get into the game time here. Some positives, some negatives. We'll dive into all of it. Hawaii now 0-2 on the season. Stanford defeating the Bows 37-24. With Stanford covering the 2.5 point spread that had come all the way down from 10, right? A lot of people I think were excited about Hawaii, and not just Hawaii fans, but some of the folks that were paying attention to that line. The over hits as well for the second week in a row at 54.5. Another kind of slow start for the Bows, but it was tied at 7 early in the second quarter. Ultimately trailed at 21-10 at halftime. Stanford stretched that lead out to 30-16 before basically the teams exchanged touchdowns down the stretch for the final margin of 37-24. But Hawaii never really kind of got it back to a single score in that second half. Initial takeaways, Hunter. We can dive into the numbers here in just a bit, but talked about the slow start. No running game really again. Actually ran for negative yardage total when you include the sack yardage, which they do in college. It was a game, I think, where for Hawaii they're going to feel a bit disappointed. I think even for fans, right? It's like, man, there's still a lot there, but they were also pretty competitive against a Pac-12 opponent. One that they were technically still underdogs against, one that, has a brand new coach, and there was a lot of unknown coming in, and I was very impressed by Ashton Gibbs. I think Troy Taylor, the guy knows what he's doing. Head coach for the Cardinal. But yeah, if they could figure out, some of those big things, right? Defensively, I still think they're way improved over last year. Just trying to figure out some things. They forced a couple of big field goals in the second half that kind of kept them in the football game. But curious what your thoughts were field side.
Yeah, I keep telling people, Jordan, that it feels like Hawaii's just good enough to get our hopes up. And so preseason, right, we kind of had this, or at least I'll just speak for myself. I had this game circled as one of those, the ball could bounce our way, game in the trenches. Maybe we could have escaped with one here. We always have the odds kind of stacked against us in non-conference play because, well, we're playing Power 5 schools. So any way you slice it, you're going to have to play a great football game to beat a Power 5 school. And we just weren't as crispy. You look at that Vandy game, when we needed to make plays, we made them. Short hitches, throws over the middle, those kind of building block plays that set up the home run opportunities and the run and shoot. We really didn't take advantage much of even the shorter end stuff. Down the stretch of the field, I can't help but think of the time when we tried to set up Chucky Hines on a little bubble screen, and we dropped the ball. Tried to set up Tylen Hines deep in that game on a very well placed screen call from the coaching staff, and Tylen dropped the ball too. Again, Chucky Hines had that deep ball down the middle in the end zone that hit him in the hands. And I think he lost it in the lights or something like that.
He almost overran it, right? It was an awkward play.
And it almost, from our view, looked like the defender kind of brushed him as the ball was getting down into his area. And if we catch that ball, we're a score down with a quarter to play. So the tide of the game would have certainly shifted at that moment. And similar to kind of what I'm describing, it's just sloppy play. The penalties, it was a messy, not well executed game on kind of every front. I mean, special teams had a better turnout, I would say. I think that's fair. Compared to, I mean, you can't get much worse than what happened at Vandy for our special teams. But and then defense, man, whew, they ran that air raid, no huddle, putting different looks against us to perfection. I mean, it was beautiful to watch, Jordan, what they are doing over there. New coach, bringing what he did down, in Sacramento State's smaller kind of school type of an offense, and he brought it to Stanford. And it was that to me was the tale of the game, how he kept us on our heels, different schemes, different looks, different pre-snap tells to our defense, and we never got settled over there, and we were kind of playing catch up from the beginning of the game.
Yeah, the tempo, right, that they run that thing at. And I think it was another scenario, right? Obviously, they give up 21 points in the first half, 16 points in the second half. Right, if that my math works out here. Defensively, I thought they got better, in the second half. That defense talked about some of the red zone stops, if you will, forcing field goals. But yeah, that Stanford offense, man, for its first game, new coach, there was all that mystery around who was going to start at quarterback. We talked a little bit about it last week. It ends up being Ashton Gibbs, who looks the part, big, physical, athletic kid who's got a great arm, and ran that tempo offense pretty well. And that was something that, we talked about it last week, and it was such an unknown as to what Stanford was going to look like. Well, maybe we knew what they were going to look like. We didn't know how good they were going to be at it, right? We knew that based on Troy Taylor's track record, Utah as a head coach at Sacramento State, what he likes to do, how quickly was he going to be able to do that? How efficient were they going to be? The answer was pretty darn good, right? They end up getting stopped on the first possession, and then after that, the rest of the first half, they were moving the football, sometimes in some decent field position as well. And so that was the question, that I think we had was, hey, how many points can Stanford score? Like, what's the number that Hawaii's got to get to?
Yeah.
37 is a decent number when you break it down, right? And we talked a little bit about the numbers that he put up at Sac State last year in particular, where they ran it for over 240 a game and threw it for over 240 a game. It's going to be a little tough at the FBS level, but 37 points a game, you'll be in a lot of games.
Yes.
I don't care who you are in the Pac-12. Especially with the timing rules now and how many fewer plays and possessions you get per game. I'm with you, and we can get into this here. I wanted to dive into some of the numbers, but the quick hitters on the run and shoot, that's something I want to talk to you about. Looking at the total offense, Stanford 406 in terms of total yards. Just for reference, that would have been 37th in the country last year. Decent numbers, top 40. I'm not saying they'll average 400 yards per game, especially once they get into, Pac-12 competition and things like that. But just gives you kind of a baseline. Like this is, Troy Taylor and what he can do. Hawaii had 350 yards of total offense. Stanford threw it for 248. Hawaii threw it for 355. Efficiency went down a bit from the Vandy game, right? Remember, it was 10 yards per attempt against Vandy, only 6.7 yards per attempt, 11.8 per completion. Hawaii currently 15th in the country in passing, though, at around that 350 number per game. Obviously, the cumulative stats, they've played 2 games. A lot of the country's only played 1, unless you're Shadur Sanders. And you only need to play 1 game to be up against the top 5 in the country. Stanford ran it for 158, 4.6 yards per carry. Hawaii ran it for -5 yards on 16 official runs. Isn't that good? But again, balance, right, for the Cardinal. About 250 on the ground, a little over 250, 150, excuse me, a little over 250 through the air, just about 250 through the air, a little over 150 on the ground. That's pretty good, man. They had Hawaii on their heels a lot. First downs, 19-17. UH ran 60 plays, Vandy 56. Stanford, we'll scratch that looking at some bold numbers there. But when you look at 11 penalties for 144 yards, that was another big one, right? The week prior, 7 penalties for 59 yards. And then the time of possession, Stanford had it for over half the game. Hawaii only had it for 23 minutes. Significant disparity there. Hawaii was 8-16 on third down. They were a little bit better than the week prior there. But a lot of those ball control numbers, I think, match the eye test when it comes to it, the yards gained. Shager threw it 53 times, completed 30 of them for 355 yards. Braden had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Was sacked 6 times, though. And now 9 sacks, I believe, through 2 games. Tyler Hines just 5 carries for 5 yards. He had 2 catches for 28 yards. You mentioned the drops. That I think bit him a little bit. Solo Vaipula 1 rush, 4 yards. That was it, basically. And then Shager scrambling for the most part. You had 10 guys catch a pass. Pofele Ashlock continues to ball out, the first freshman in program history to have 200-yard games to begin his career. That's pretty good when you look at the litany of receivers that have come through this program. 8 catches, 114 yards, a touchdown. He was the Mountain West Freshman of the Week for the 2nd week running now. Kuali Nishigaya, kind of his coming out party. 6 catches, 52 yards. The guy he's always just open. He just, he's always between 2 defenders.
And tough.
And tough, man. And tough. He ain't a big dude. Stephen McBride, great touchdown grab. 3 catches, 40 yards total. Alex Perry, 4 for 43. Grayson Morgan, 2 grabs, 9 yards. Chucky Hines had 1 for 5. Carson Pupuno on one of the wilder plays you'll see on a deflection, 33 yards on that grab. Landon Sims had 2 for 22. And Devon Tauefa had 1 for 9. Word is Najee Bryant-Lele will be back next week, or this week, I should say, cleared to play. But offensively, look, Ashlock can play. McBride can play. They've got a slew of other receivers as well. And a lot of guys getting playing time as well. Shager, once again, throws it for a ton of yards. Not as efficient as I think he'd like, but the 3 touchdowns to 0 picks, love that number. And the running game, just really nothing there for the 2nd week in a row. In fact, even worse than it was against Vanderbilt. But as we dive into this offense a little bit more, Hunter, one thing I wanted to ask you about, right? There are a lot of throws downfield, a lot of deep routes, a lot of long developing plays. You know, some of those sacks maybe not necessarily on the offensive line. There were a couple, man, where Shaker's holding on the ball. They're pretty long. You know, the run and shoot that I'm sure a lot of folks are familiar with, and you can enlighten us a bit here, Hunter. Right, at its best, it's like a get the ball out, catch and throw, ball control type offense that opens things up. We haven't really seen that get going just yet. But I'm curious what you've been able to observe. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe it's the way the defenses have played. You know, obviously guys out of the slot like Ashlock getting 8 for 114. That's pretty darn good. But what have you kind of, you know, been able to spot out with this run and shoot so far?
Coach Arnold Martinez was on the radio with us yesterday, and he called it a not running kind of shoot type of an offense. That's what we're observing right now. It is in any offense for football. If you aren't running the ball, you aren't controlling the line of scrimmage, which means you're also not moving those linebackers around, which means it's going to be very difficult to pass the ball. And so I actually attribute to what we're seeing or not seeing with our inability to run the football. So you saying that Najee Bryant-Lele is going to be coming back, I'm very encouraged that is ahead of us and we have something to build off of. But back to kind of what we were talking about for those, what I like to call benchmark foundational plays in the run and shoot. You go back and watch film from the Timmy Chang era with Rolo when they were playing, obviously with Cole Brennan, and then into Moniz. All those guys, they're getting the ball out if they like their first read. Usually your front side is your man beater, your back side is your zone beater. That's why when the run and shoot is clicking, it's so dangerous, because you have an answer theoretically against whoever and whatever you play against. They're usually getting the ball out on their third step, and if they aren't, they're immediately going back to their backside reads for a zone beater. So I still think we are getting kind of the rust off with play calling. I wasn't as impressed with kind of the diversity of play calling that we saw in the Vandy game. And subsequently, it looked like it took Braden a little bit more time to get the ball out of his hand, where there were some of those, you know, hey, take the hitch when it's there, take the quick slant, the kind of mesh in route over the middle. We had a lot more of those, at least it felt like, in that Vandy game. And you know, I talked with Dalen Morris and Jonah Pinoque on the sideline later in that game, and we all agreed there were some opportunities that I think we just need to be a little bit more disciplined about. And hey, there's nothing less sexy than a hitch. Okay. No one wants to throw that, but in the run and shoot, when you're playing teams that give you that soft zone look, you take it 100 out of 100 times, because it's essentially a running play. It's very low risk. It puts us in a positive winning situation, and we break a tackle right there. We're one-on-one with a safety. We're just running. So it's one of those kind of learning things. I'm sure if I had the chance to watch film, I bet there were a lot more open opportunities, because it didn't feel like a great day, but he still had 350 in the air, Jordan, and 3 touchdowns. So that speaks to the run and shoot's ability to put us in winning situations, even when we're not clicking at our best on offense.
Yeah, I think that's the positive glass half full thing, right? If you want to look at it that way, right? They've scored basically 4 times in each of the 2 games. I get it at 24, not necessarily 4 touchdowns in this game. And if they can bump, like that's with it still not quite congealed yet. Like the offense isn't a well-oiled machine yet, but they're still throwing it for 350. They're still putting up 4 scores a game. They haven't been able to run the ball worth a lick. And so it's been very one-dimensional, but still they're putting up these numbers, right? And some of that came late, some of that's come with against Vandy, they had to up the tempo a little bit and get after it. But still, there I think is that optimistic outlook at it. But I think what you're talking about is very fair, right? Especially if you're not going to run the football, you got to be able to hit the quick stuff. You got to be able to hit the quick game, get the ball high volume out of your hands and get it moving, right? Like that's essential. And I think they'll get there. This is a group that clearly has a ton of guys that they can go to. And so that I think, and we have asked this question before, and now that we're 2 games in, and all of this could change very well against a much different opponent come Saturday against Albany, a better Albany team than I think they were last year. And we'll get into them in the second half. But, as they get away from Power 5 competition, I know Oregon looms in about 10 days' time, but the deep stable of receivers is great. Is there a point of diminishing return where it's like, hey, we need just a couple of guys, you need the 3 to 4 guys to get majority of the reps to develop timing and chemistry? Or is it a better scenario to keep everybody's legs fresh, to keep rotating guys in there? I don't have the answer. I think it's a question we brought up from early on. And then the other one is the tight end, right? I like Grayson Morgan. I think he brings a lot to it. Does it fit? Right? Like, Rolo dabbled with it a bit as well when he first started bringing back the run and shoot. And there are a lot of positives to having that type of body out there. Whether it's in the run game, whether it's in pass protection, whether it's in underneath routes and things like that. But does it match up with what they ultimately are trying to do in terms of get it out there, right? We saw a lot of 4 wide. We saw it at times looked pretty good. At times it wasn't like it was light years better, I would say, than having that 11 personnel out there. But I think those are internal questions that Coach Chang and the crew are probably asking themselves, right? It's like, okay, how do we start getting more efficiency out of the offense? How do we run the football better in terms? How do we up the efficiency in the passing game? Again, these are good questions to have, and I get it. They're 0-2, and you'd love to be at least 1-1 here against 2 Power 5 opponents. That'd be great. That'd be huge in terms of a rung up the ladder for this program as they try to climb back to competitiveness and bowl eligibility. But this is a passing game that has shown to be potent. But I think to the keen eye, it's like, man, there's still a lot out there. Like they could be up in this even more, which is a good problem to have. And hopefully that results in a win on Saturday that can kind of get them feeling good about themselves, and then continue to improve the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, the fact that we're even talking about the potential of winning our first 2 games of the season speaks to how good at times we have looked, and in comparison to how good we didn't look last year. So again, we can't help as Hawaii faithful to kind of get our hopes up there. Yeah, it's a great question, Jordan. I don't know what the answer is going to be. It did look like from a coaching, a play calling perspective that they put our guys in positions to win. We got sloppy down the stretch, and then when you consider the 11 penalties for almost 150 yards of penalty yards, that's very difficult to win a football game when that is happening. That is not championship level football when that stuff is happening. So Timmy, when we interviewed him at halftime, kept talking about we got to stop shooting ourselves in the foot. we kind of control our destiny with an offense like this, and we need to rise up to more of a taking ownership kind of a football team instead of just kind of going with the flow. Yeah, there were some shots that I think we would have wanted back. I think about the drop from Chucky Hines, and then a little bit later, we were deep in Stanford territory, and I think it was like I almost want to say it was like a hurried third down opportunity or something like that. And we tried to throw a jump ball to Alex Perry on the outside, and unfortunately threw it out of bounds. We haven't quite gotten dialed on the jump ball. And I'd be repping that a lot if I was Coach Timmy, just because, especially with a guy like Alex Perry, who's 6'4" and can out jump anybody that we see. That we need to have. We haven't been great in the red zone. We've gotten to the red zone several times and just haven't gotten it done at the level that we need to. So we're close, and you can feel it, Jordan. We're just not quite there yet.
Yeah, let's talk about the defensive side of the football now. A defense that has yet to take the football away here. After getting after the quarterback and really in the backfield against Vandy, not so much against Stanford. A lot of that had to do with tempo. A lot of that had to do with how quickly they get that football out. No sacks, no takeaways this week. Did have 4 tackles for loss. Isaiah Tufunga and Logan Taylor leading the way. Tufunga with 6 tackles, Taylor with 9, 2 of them for loss. Peter Manuma, 4 tackles. Jonah Kahavai Welch with 5 tackles. Noah Kemma getting a lot of playing time. 5 tackles and a pass breakup for the linebacker. Capstone, 4 tackles, 2 PBUs. Did exit with a knee injury, leg injury, I guess we'll call it, after a kick return in the second half. Unsure his status, how he'll be doing going forward. I think, the feeling is cautiously optimistic, but we won't speculate there. But the guy who I thought really stood out, Elijah Palmer, the freshman out of Gorman. This dude was all over the place, laying the wood, covering, getting after it at the line of scrimmage in coverage. I like that dude. You can see why the coaching staff loved him from the get-go as one of those 3 Gorman boys who came this season as true freshman. And he's a player. And also, by the way, listed atop the depth chart at that nickel position. Once again this week, heading into the Albany contest. Kind of similar start, a little slow. I think, replicating that tempo in practice, especially on a short week, it's going to be really hard. And so to get this defense ready, you can talk about it, you can get on the board, you can get on film, you can step through it at practice a little bit, but man, that game speed, that game tempo is going to take a little while to adjust to. And I think we saw that from this defense. Again, I brought up some of the second half plays, particularly in the fourth quarter, kind of kept Hawaii within striking distance. I thought they got better. But the other big thing for me on defense, Hunter, is just they got to find ways to take the football away. This has kind of been their bugaboo the last couple of seasons, just the lack of turnovers created. And whether that's dialing up pressure, whatever it is, finding a way to do so is going to help them out a lot. It's going to help them out a lot. It'll get them off the field, steal some possessions, steal a little momentum. But what do you think of the defensive side of the football here in the loss against Stanford?
Yeah, anytime you're playing against a high-powered tempo offense, you're going to have your hands full, especially when that team is executing. It's one thing if you have tempo but can't get first downs, then you almost feel like, hey, you got away with one there, but they had no problem moving the ball. And with various different looks, with tight ends getting out to the flat, receivers winning one-on-one matchups on the outside, getting running backs and slots in end around sweeps and jet sweeps. it felt like you didn't know what they were going to throw at you on every single play. And if we can't provide significant pressure, again, I think we only had a couple tackles for loss in this game against a Division I opponent. They're going to eat you alive. And it felt worse than what the score showed, Jordan, being down there on the sideline. It felt like they owned us on that side of the football. So yeah, I'm with you, man. We are, thankfully we didn't give the ball up this game, but we're still in the negative for turnovers on the season. I think we're down 2. So that's just something that we are going to need. If we want to be competitive at all, we need our defense to punch the ball out, tip throws, tips and overthrows, got to get those. And we're not quite there in the trenches to be able to hang week in, week out on just our base formations. And so we really do need to kind of lean on spectacular performance from our secondary. And this week it's kind of a nice transition to what we're going to see. I believe Meki Pay will be ready to go because his targeting was in the first half of this last game. But we will not have Isaiah Tufunga for the first half of this game against Albany because his targeting came in the second half. So that's going to be a bummer because we need those guys. They're mainstays on our defense. Man, I think it's fair to say we need a solid kind of coming out party for this defense that still hasn't quite shown what they're capable of this season.
Yeah, it's a group that, you see some of the individual talent from it. And I think, defense, man, it is such a, like, you got to be connected, right? And it's putting that all together. And again, the takeaways are going to be a big thing, I think. Ashton Daniels, right? Quarterback, threw it for 248, 2 touchdowns, ran it for 42. I think he's going to be one of the better guys they see this season. The tight end, Ben Urosic, 9 catches, 138 yards.
Stanford
produced
touchdown. Tight ends, man.
Yeah, they kind of vintage Stanford in that sense with that modern offense. We've already talked about the special teams a little bit. Just solid, kind of, it was better than the Vanderbilt game, obviously. Just pretty solid overall. One last couple of questions for you, Hunter, before we turn the page and look at Albany here before the halftime break. The aggressiveness, right? Hawaii has shown a propensity to go for it on 4th down inside field goal range the last couple of weeks. They did it last week down 14, trying to get back in the football game instead of opting for a field goal. They did it again this week, went for it 4th and 3 down in the red zone, down 24-10 with 8:03 left in the third quarter, failed to convert there. They go for 2 after scoring to cut it to 11. So instead of kicking the PAT to go down 10, opted to go for 2 to get within 10. A couple other aggressive calls from Timmy, right? Modern football, analytics. A lot of times it says to go for it, keep the foot on the pedal, 4th and short, a number that you can get 7 points versus 3 can go a long way. I guess the other argument is, hey, 3 points versus 0 also can go a decent ways. What have you made of Coach Chang's, aggressiveness, particularly with the football? I think ultimately it didn't necessarily change the result one way or another.
Yep.
You can say, hey, they kicked the field goal, they get the PAT instead of being, they could have been down 7 at one point instead of, well, ultimately it was 10 at a number. Maybe things changed a little bit. That was pretty late in the game. But curious to get your thoughts on that, Hunter.
Yeah, I credit this coaching staff top to bottom, and I love when a coach is aggressive. I just do. You play to win the game, And if we're going to look at decisions like that, I can't help but think of a game like poker, because it feels like Hawaii is the short stack of chips right now, with especially on offense, with not really outside of Pofele Ashlock and maybe McBride on the outside, still kind of searching for our dude. Certainly still looking for our dude in the running back position. I mean, we haven't run the ball at all. Trying to get creative with using a guy like Solo, but Jordan, he's an offensive lineman. He's not supposed to be a great running back for us. As much as we want to hope for that, I mean, it's kind of gimmicky and pushing the chips all in, if you will. Like, you have to look for opportunities to go fishing and try to create a bluff opportunity. And that's where I think going forward on fourth down, we need those opportunities just to be that close. So I don't fault it at all, because we need those we need those fourth down calls to kind of go in our favor, just to be able to squeak over the finish line and get a dub. So I don't fault it at all. It just comes down to execution, and we're not executing at a winning level just yet.
Yeah, a lot of that has to do, right? You're trying to figure out what the number you got to get to. Stanford was scoring points. They weren't going to stay at 24. Did you need to get to 40? Did you need to get to a bigger number? That all factors in as well. Points are good. I like points one way or another. But you're getting into some of these shootouts. It can put the pressure on you. You gotta be able to convert on fourth down, and they've been okay at it through the first 2 weeks. We're decent against Vanderbilt, but that is something that we'll keep our eye on as well. All right, went pretty long here on the first half. We'll take a quick break, come back, preview Albany on the other side.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, second half time here on episode 106. Jordan Hunter back with you. Albany this Saturday. The Great Danes make the long trek out. 6 o'clock kickoff, as the usual home start time is. We got you covered on the ESPN Honolulu platforms as always. Hunter will be down there with the Veneri brothers, as Hunter will be doing the sideline reporting as usual for us. Television-wise, first Spectrum pay-per-view game of the season as well. No line out yet, usual FCS timetable. Maybe you can catch something a little bit closer to kickoff. First ever meeting between the Great Danes and the Rainbow Warriors. UH has won its last 19 games against FCS teams, going all the way back to 2001, winning by an average of 26.7 points per game. A little background on Albany. They're 1-1 on the season. Had a pretty dominant victory over Fordham to start the season, and then went down to Huntington, West Virginia, and gave Marshall a big-time scare. Albany head coach Greg Gattuso in his 10th season already, 40-58 overall record. Prior to Albany, he coached 12 years at Duquesne, where he was 97-32, and then had a pretty big gap where he was a coordinator and whatnot before taking the head coaching job at Albany. It was like almost 10 years, I think. 22 years overall as a collegiate head coach, 137-89. We mentioned the 34-13 win against Fordham, and then a 21-17 loss at Marshall, a game that they were ahead by as many as 10 points in the third quarter before Marshall scored the final 14 points of the game. I think they only gave up 3 at halftime and held Marshall scoreless for much of the first half. So this is a team that's looking like they might be improved on last year's 3-8 campaign. Great Danes went 3-8 in 2022, 2-6 in the CAA, formerly known as the Colonial Athletic Association. They are now the Coastal Athletic Association, for those of you out there curious of such things. CAA is always really good. They had 5 teams ranked in the FCS poll last year. Great Danes led by QB Reese Poffenbarger. Great name. 57.7% completion percentage through the first 2 games, throwing it for 447 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's also run it for 84 yards. He's like the second or third leading rusher on the team, and he's also got the team's only rushing touchdown He was the CAA Offensive Rookie of the Year last year, was Poffenbarger. Their lead back is Nate Larkins, and they've kind of spread it out in the pass catching department. 5 receivers with at least 5 catches through their first 2 games. Roy Alexander has been their most potent target out there. He's got 2 receiving touchdowns. Hawaii has fared well. We know that over the last 20 plus years against FCS opponents of varying degrees. We've seen some really good teams come in here, Northern Iowa with David Johnson. We've seen some teams that were okay of the FCS variety. I'm going to peg this Albany team as pretty good. Yeah, I think they're a pretty quality opponent coming in. I think Hawaii should win this game. I think they should feel like this could be a bit of a get right game. They're saying all the right things. We're not overlooking opponents. Albany's coming in here to win. We're not taking them lightly. All that kind of stuff. That's the mindset you got to go in there with. But it's a game that Hawaii should and I think will win. But it won't be a blowout. I think it won't be a pushover type game. I think it's a game they could win handily, comfortably. But I don't think they're going to win by 40 against an Albany squad that seems to have some decent quality to them.
Yeah, I think that's a good call, Jordan. Anytime that we play a lower level school like an Albany, the temptation is to kind of snooze our way into it. And that is one thing that I am going to be meticulously watching this game is our energy, how we come out. We're 0-2. We got to get going. We're still trying to get to 6 or 7 wins on the season. There is no snoozing into this, boys. We got to get going. And this is our opportunity to get something established on both sides of the football. For the fans out there, I think you're going to notice just a more evenly matched opponent from a size perspective in the trenches. I don't expect their O-line or D-line to be all that much bigger from ours. In fact, I would hope that we actually are bigger than them in some capacity. And with that, usually you can expect a more controlled game without a whole lot of stunts or alternative kind of approaches. So I feel like just that off the bat, we're in a good position. Now, offensively, I don't think it's unfair to hope for at least 30 points, Jordan. Like I want to see what our offense can do. I want to see what this group of receivers and what Braden can do in a good environment. I want to see how far this new Timmy Chang era run and shoot can stretch its legs. I want to see that from this weekend, not a 21-14 victory. I want to see us score some points. And then defensively, there is no better opportunity on our schedule to get some turnovers, boys. Like make it a film day. Put it on the tape. Let's get some sacks out there. Let's hear TC Ching erupt from a pick 6. I want us to have some fun this weekend. This is why we put teams like this on our schedule, is to invigorate and put some a jolt of energy into our team, into our fan base, and get a win on the board, Jordan. I don't know. I'm excited for Saturday.
Yeah, speaking of schedules, Albany back-to-back FBS opponents, on opposite sides of the country. Not unlike Hawaii going to Vandy, then coming home to play Stanford. You go play 2 Power 5 opponents. This is pretty unusual for Albany, at least looking back over the last 10 plus years. They also don't venture very far from the Eastern Seaboard. They went to Baylor last year. They've played like in the Dakotas, both in the FCS playoffs and some non-conference games, but that's about it, man. They're not going past the Rockies, that's for sure. And here they are coming all the way out to Hawaii. How much of a factor is that? Hawaii last week, that was a tough turnaround to go from Vanderbilt, the delayed game as well. all the way in Nashville, and then to turn right around and play
A week.
Stanford on a short week.
Yeah.
Usually you get the advantage of being at home, making them travel, but quite honestly, Hawaii had a longer trip to get to that game than Stanford did on Stanford's first game of the season. Now you get an extra day, right? You had the game on Friday, so you get a little bit of an extra 24 hours, if you will, before this Saturday's game. Meanwhile, Albany playing week 0, playing in week 1, going to West Virginia. Now they got to come all the way out to Hawaii. They got here. They might be here already. They were going to get here pretty early, coming out from the East Coast, but they played on Saturday against Marshall. So they'll be a day behind, if you will, a little bit shorter turnaround time than the Bows here. How much of a factor is that, you think? It is still pretty early in the season. Guys are still fresh, but also maybe getting a little acclimated. I'd imagine that was a pretty welcomed day off on Saturday for the Bows.
Yeah, I think they enjoyed some much needed rest. I hate to say, Jordan, we looked a little banged up on the sideline, both physically and just emotionally. I think this is usually what you see after maybe like week 5 or so, but we looked kind of battered, and like our spirit needed invigorating as a team. That was my observation from being down there on the sideline. And we're still kind of looking for a leader on offense, to be completely honest with you. We need some guys to kind of rise up, and Tylen Hines is that leader on the offense, but as still yet to kind of make his presence known, unfortunately, in the backfield. So that's kind of the way football goes. You don't want to be the guy just kind of jabbering on the sideline, thinking you're a leader and not proving it on the field, because you need both to have any kind of influence. I look at something like that. I'm sure Timmy let those guys kind of enjoy their Labor Day weekend to kind of lick the wounds a little bit, because we need to wake up. We need to wake up to get going into this season where, in some aspects, I feel like we're still kind of snoozing. So good thing for us, this is a longer week, if you will, with one extra day to kind of prep and get ready. I don't imagine Albany to come in and show us nearly the look that we saw from Stanford, with the versatility and dynamic play calling and tempo that we saw from that offense. And so in some ways, I think we're going to be able to kind of catch our breath a little bit on defense, but that in no way is an excuse to get comfy. I still want us to be aggressive and hungry to dominate this game, because we need to.
Yeah, it's a big one. Must have, I think, for Hawaii,
Yes.
if they want to go bowling. That is for sure. Look, 7 wins gets you there. That would be 7 over the next 11. They'd have to go 7-4, right? 6 wins might probably get you there as well, but you got to find a way to win this one for sure. As we go through it. All right, we've kind of exhausted the conversation in a lot of ways. Shout out to our comments as well. Kavika on Facebook, good to hear from him again, sharing some really good thoughts on the running game, how to use Len Sims, how to use Tylen Hines, how to get those guys going, clean up some of the pass protection as well. And then Al from VA, always a good shout out, talking about the linebackers as well. All right, before we head out of here, Hunter, the score again wasn't too far off, maybe the other way, against Stanford. But do you have a score prediction? Since you almost nailed it week 1, we're just going to turn this into a weekly thing. But before we head on out, you got a score prediction against Albany. The wise guys in the desert haven't put out any numbers just yet, as we mentioned. So we're turning to our resident wise guy, Hunter, here for what he thinks maybe the score comes Saturday.
I think we're going to win 35-20.
Okay.
Yeah, UH 35, Albany 20. I think that'll be what we see at Ching.
All right. Maybe a little something to feel good about after the weekend. So you heard it here first. That's what the score is going to be. 35 to 20 Hawaii in that one. Hopefully it's maybe like a late touchdown by Albany that creates the final number a little less stressful. But hey, whether they win by 1 or they win by 30, I think Hawaii will take it. Just trying to get the wheels turning, get things paddling in the right direction for this group. All right, that'll do it for us here on episode 106. We'll see you guys down at Ching on Saturday as Hawaii will welcome in the Great Danes. Big thanks to all of you for tuning in. Big thanks to Spectrum Mobile, HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill. As always, big thanks to Jonathan on the control. Shout out to Hunter, and shout out to Uncle Ron, listening all the way or watching all the way in Alaska. I think he's home now. But man,
unreal.
The dedication.
Legend.
So shout out to Uncle Ron. We'll see. Might be down at the field. Who knows? Maybe catch him at the game on Saturday. We'll see you guys. Aloha.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helly and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.